Welcome to December 7th LeetCode Challenge. Largest odd numbers in string. We're given a string nums representing a large integer. Return the largest value odd integer as a string that is a non-empty substring of num, or an empty substring if no odd integer exists. The substring is a contiguous sequence of characters within a string. So we're given this string here, nums, and each the value here is basically we want to find the only non-empty substrings are 5 and 2. Since 52 is even, the next even number of that substring, next odd number of the substring, largest value, will be 5. 5 is the only odd number. And we're given a string nums here, and each of the substring is even. Return empty because there are no odd integers that exist. And then if we're given num here as a string, we notice that if the rightmost character casted as an integer is odd, then that will be our substring. So the entire number string itself is already an odd number. We'll use this fact from these examples to kind of help us guide our solution. Constraints that the length of num is between 1 to 10 to the 5, and num consists of only digits. It does not contain any leading zeros. So intuitively, we notice that if we think a bit about the most right digit of the largest odd number in a string, we know that it's a right digit, rightmost digit. So the odd number, a number is only odd if and only if its rightmost digit is odd. So we basically need to look at the largest index of the string and look at that to see if it's an odd number or not. And then if it's not, then we go to the next odd number on the moving to the left. And that's kind of in a way kind of like a greedy type approach. If we start off on the rightmost character here, substring, it's an odd number, then the rest will be all included in the substring as well, making it the largest odd number. So for any given substring num, if the final character of the substring represents an odd number, then the entire substring integer representation will also be odd. We're looking for the largest value substring, so we should aim to maximize our value of the substrings, as each additional character increases the integer representation value by its magnitude. Essentially, if we look at the rightmost number, if it's odd, then if we keep on expanding the substring, the larger the number will be. So where should we start the substring? The answer is that we should start from the beginning of num. So that would mean that the factor that determines if a value is odd is the final character, meaning rightmost character. And there's no downside from starting at any given location, but it's best to start by maximizing the size of our substring. So where should we begin? So this brings us to the solution. So essentially what we want to do is iterate through each value in num starting from the right. And I'm just going to write that down right now by iterating from the right. For int I, integer I, equal to num.length, and we want to take the entire length, the maximum size, length I should say, of num, which would be num length.num, the length of num minus 1, and we want to find our looping condition will be it's when I is greater or equal to 0, and we want to iterate from left of the from the right of the substring to the left, and therefore we would decrement our loop. Alright, let's double check to see if this is good. Alright, next thing you want to do is if. So since this is a string, for each index, what we want to do is typecast it back to an integer. We want to compare it to make sure if it's an odd, check to see if it's an odd number or not, and then we convert it back. So how do we check if it's an odd number or not? The first thing I'm going to do is probably convert it from a character back to a numeric number. So character class has a method called get numeric value, and we want to convert it from basically num character at index I. And how do we know if this value is even or odd? We would use the modulus operator. So we take a mod 2. If it's not equal to 0, that means it is odd, and hence we want to keep that character, that index, and so now we know the index. So basically, we want to convert anything from the index where we're at all the way to index 0. And to do that, we have to convert it back into as a string. So we do num.substring, and we take the substring from 0 to I plus 1. And that's going to include basically anything from the rightmost odd value, everything to the left. And that'll be our largest odd number in the string substring. If all else fails, that means that there is no odd number integer that exists, and we want to return our empty substring. So let's take a run. Let's run our code here. Do a little bit of sanity check. That looks like it's operational. Let's submit this. Excellent. So as we see here, essentially what we did was that we iterate starting from I for the length of num minus 1, which is the maximum size of the substring of the string, to 0. We cast the index at num to an integer, and we take its value, its mod value, to find if it's even or odd. If the result is not equal to 0, therefore it is an odd number, we return a substring from that specific index, which is the largest most right value or character, and then we take everything all the way to the left, which is the index 0, and return that as a substring, back as a string, I should say. Else, we just return an empty string. And that's kind of our solution. Complexity analysis. So given that n is the length of num, for time complexity, what we do is we do a for loop. So worst case scenario, we iterate through each character of num, performing at linear time. So that would mean that at worst case scenario, big O of n for time complexity. For for space complexity, we have we aren't using any extra space, so we don't count the answers part of the space complexity. So we're using constant memory. And that's it. Have a great day, everyone.